abolish and prosecute ICE. We need to repeal the Patriot Act. We need to lift refugee caps, and we need to offer complete amnesty and citizenship to any immigrant here who has not committed a violent crime.
So tonight we had primary elections in the state of Illinois, and those of you who were on the channel last year may remember a character by the name of Kat Abughazaleh. This was the Democrat Illinois congressional candidate, this very theatrical character who kept on showing up to the ICE facility and obstructing law enforcement, refusing to obey commands. In one case, she was even beating on a law enforcement vehicle, which is of course illegal. And then anytime she either got picked up, dragged, or body slammed by ICE agents after she repeatedly tried to resist the lawful commands of law enforcement agents, she would cry the victim. She repeatedly claimed she was assaulted. And of course, for her troubles, she was slapped with a criminal indictment for her very actions, in which she, I repeat, obstructed law enforcement and even attempted to assault and vandalize a ICE vehicle, which is obviously against the law. But according to her, no, that was never the case. You know, the law doesn't apply to Democrats or left-wing domestic terrorists. If they're opposing ICE, they can simply do whatever they want. And anytime that people are held accountable for their actions, if they're left-wing, obviously this is just some form of a fascist takeover when the rules actually apply to us. So of course, that was the character in question. Well, tonight was her big election, and there was a lot of speculation that because of her fake crying and victimhood, and of course the criminal charges, we know how much Democrats love to enjoy people who commit crimes, that perhaps Kat Abughazaleh here would have won the election. But that is not the case, ladies and gentlemen. As of this hour, we just got the news that the race has been called and Kat Abughazaleh has officially lost. Now, the initial election results were showing her basically getting blown out. To her credit, she did manage to close the gap in the later ballots, because you know how Democrats behave when it comes to votes coming in after midnight and stuff like that. But still, nonetheless, the end result of this will be what? After all of her theatrical trouble, showing up to that ICE facility, getting pushed on the ground because she couldn't listen to law enforcement, and even facing criminal charges, what does she have to show for it, right? A lost congressional race that she was not able to be successful in, but it was all for what? What is she walking away with? No congressional seat, and by the way, very likely here soon, a criminal record. So welcome to the Democrat Party, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just say, a cautionary tale of what happens when you try to join the other side. You're just going to end up powerless, a loser, oh, and by the way, in jail. Very emblematic, by the way, of the Democrat Party. So we'll talk about this. We'll obviously gloat over it, but at the same time, I'd like to point out that if you think the Democrat electorate suddenly came to its senses, oh, they rejected this absolute lying, law-breaking lunatic, I would point out that is not the case. As a matter of fact, it turns out that she may have actually lost to someone even more progressive, insane, and radical than her, which is to say, despite everything that Kat put herself, her body, and her criminal record through, in the end, she may have ultimately lost the woke Olympics to someone even more crazy. So that is very emblematic, of course, I would say, of the Democrat electorate, right? I've pointed out many times, by the way, guys, you know, if you look at the politicians in DC and try to have this idea that, well, don't blame the people, blame the voters. No, it's just simply the truth. I mean, after all, watch what they said on social media following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Look at what they're saying on social media about any major issue of today. No, it's actually the case that the Democrat electorate themselves are radicalized. They are, of course, the ones who think it's okay and actually a morally good thing to go out and commit domestic terrorism and political violence in our streets. And so at the same time, that shouldn't be all that surprising. But nonetheless, we'll bring you the story here today on Kat Abughazaleh in today's video. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support. It also ensures that you can stay up to date with all the latest news and coverage. And that said, to give you a brief refresher course, because I'm sure it's been a long time for a lot of people, on who this character is, okay, I want to remind everyone, this was the person who there was a lot of headlines and hype about how she got body slammed by ICE. According to her, this is what it looks like when ICE violates our First Amendment rights. And then as you can see on the video, literally they're just blocking the road. They're refusing to move after repeated commands to do so. And then, like the absolute theatrical child that she is, ICE was forced, remember this was last year in Chicago, to pick her up and literally physically move her out of the way because she just doesn't want to do so. And then, of course, as a result of that, she claimed that she got body slammed. And again, I repeat, this was a violation of First Amendment rights. So take a look at this, right? So you have videos like this. So there was that, you know, even on the surface, I think even watching that video alone, it's clear that there's missing some context here. So you can see, right? That's Kat right there in the lovely N95 mask. You know, they're liberals, still social distancing, I guess, in 2026, whatever. Okay. But she's sitting there blocking the road. By the way, it appears blocking the driveway of the ICE facility where the vehicle has to leave. They're telling them to get up and move, right? Get out of the road. You're not allowed to stand there just because you're a leftist. You're a leftist, by the way, right? But of course, she refuses to move, right? And so they have to pick her up and move her to a part at a different part of the street. And then, of course, that is the moment where she of course claims that she got body slammed here. So they literally just move her out the way. Okay. And then, like the child that she is, she goes and walks back to sit in the same exact position. Bear in mind, she's framing this as a lawful, peaceful protest. They're just violating her rights. Oh, no, they're shoving her. Oh, why is that? She's acting like she's just some innocent victim who got shoved for no reason, right? No, of course, that's not the case. Okay. So you have that on one hand, and then about a week later, she made the bright idea to show up to the same exact ICE facility and then claim the following. So she said, at the Broadview ICE facility, an ICE agent tried to run dozens of protesters over with a SUV as we walked on a public crosswalk. So that is her claim. I repeat, ICE tried to run over protesters as the protesters were merely walking on a public crosswalk. Well, of course, when you actually just simply look at the video, I repeat, this is the video that she posted about it, right? We're not even taking something from somewhere else. These are all her videos that I'm citing, okay? You can clearly see, first of all, they're not trying to run anyone over. They're actually just trying to move. They have somewhere to be, and they're going at about 2 miles per hour, just like the car is basically in neutral, right? They're just inching it along. And then the protesters are not walking on a public crosswalk, okay? They're not innocently crossing the street. I'm sorry. No, they're standing in the road. They're standing in the road and blocking it. So take a look at this video right here. So here you have it.
Up with liberation! Down, down with deportation! Up with liberation!
I repeat, according to Kat Abughazaleh, this is ICE trying to run them over. They're choosing to stand there. They see the car coming at 2 miles per hour, right? They get in front of it. They start pushing on the car, and as you'll see in a second, they're pounding on the car, right?
Down, down with deportation!
Down, down with deportation!
Up with liberation!
And of course, as you saw as well, they're like pounding on it. But again, according to her, right, they just tried to run the protesters over or something. But back last year, I actually framed it as a prime example of how leftists lie. Okay, and they've done this throughout history with these protests and these propaganda moments where they try to spin things to say, oh, an ICE agent picked me up and body slammed me. Look at what they're doing to peaceful protesters. Oh, did you care to acknowledge the fact that you were sitting in the road, which is illegal, and then they had to open up the road and you refused to move, and so they picked you up and carried you? How about, oh, they're trying to run me over. Do you see, like, are they trying to run you over in this video, right? Are you freaking serious? But anyways, it turns out that after her rampant lying about literally everything, right, she's, of course, like leftists do, inciting and provoking all of the problems and then crying the victim when consequences come to them. It turns out what happened next is, of course, as you may remember, she was actually criminally indicted by the federal government due to her very behaviors right here in this video, where she was, of course, not just standing in front of a moving vehicle, but pushing against it. You even had protesters slamming against it. And of course, what happened next?
My name is Kat Abughazaleh. I'm running for Congress in the 9th District of Illinois, and the Department of Justice is charging 6 people, including myself, with federal crimes for exercising our First Amendment rights near ICE's Broadview Processing Center. This is a political prosecution and a gross attempt to silence dissent. a right protected under the First Amendment. This case is a major push by the Trump administration to criminalize protest and punish anyone who speaks out against them. That's why I'm going to fight these unjust charges, but I need your help to do it. As I and others have exercised our First Amendment rights, ICE has hit, dragged, thrown, shot with pepper balls, and tear gassed hundreds of protesters.
Yeah, just to be clear, the indictment alleges that you and others, quote, surrounded a federal officer's vehicle, banged on its hood and windows, etched pig on the side, and impeded movement. Did you etch the word pig on the side of an officer's car?
I'm not speaking to the specifics of anything that's in the indictment right now, but like I said, I do plan on pleading not guilty, and the evidence will come out in court. And, I plan on winning.
Okay. Well, let's watch the video of what happened that day that they are. But when you see that, what do you think right now?
Tara, once again, this is my first time being federally indicted. Like I said, I plan on pleading not guilty. The evidence will come out in court, and I plan on winning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Just really quickly, I did want to ask you about just the fact that conspiracy to impede an officer is up to 6 years in prison, forcibly impeding and intimidating an officer is up to 8 years. Is that that could actually hinder your ability to serve in Congress? Are you concerned about that? Did she just sign off? Did she just leave the chat? I'm so confused. I'm sorry. I don't know what just happened. Okay. Well, she left because I asked her questions about what happened that day.
Oh, yeah, totally. Her First Amendment right to riot, obstruct law enforcement, defy the commands of law enforcement officers, stand in front of moving vehicles, blocking active roadways. This is all just what the First Amendment was really about, as we well know. This is just totally political speech. Yeah, the only reason the Trump administration is coming after you is because they're trying to criminalize free speech. Of course, this is what the leftist idea is of free speech, right? All of what you saw on camera, that's free speech. Now, Charlie Kirk, on the other hand, that apparently wasn't free speech, right? That was violence. Actually, his speech is violence, but actual violence out in the streets, that's not violence. But as we know, this is the upside down, backwards, morally bankrupt worldview of leftists. What else do we expect? Frankly, my only surprise in this whole situation is that she really didn't win, right? Because I long speculated she would be seen as a hero for doing this, right? We know how rabid the anti-ICE movement is. We know how much they've tried to crown characters like Renee Good and Alex Preddy as their new George Floyd, their new heroes. And so Kat, really, you would think, oh, the federal government's indicting her, this is going to help her campaign, should not have been all that far down the list. But ladies and gentlemen, I either regret or am proud, however you see it, to inform you tonight that is not the case, because she has lost the Democrat primary, which I repeat means all of that sacrifice, including the criminal charges in the end, were for nothing. Quite hilarious, right? All that got you is what? Crime doesn't pay. You thought you could fight the law, Kat, right? No, it does. You're never going to outrun the law, because, ladies and gentlemen, as we are speaking right now, it turns out that Kat has lost by a margin here of around 4 points to this other Democrat by the name of Daniel Biss. As you can see right here, the Associated Press has officially called this race for the other candidate here. As you can see, she managed to win about one county here, barely, but the rest of the part of Chicago here that she was running, turns out she was rejected. So there you have it. Now, on the flip side, I repeat, if you thought this was some type of moderate Democrat who overcame the rabid socialists, no, turns out that's not the case. So here is the Daniel Biss character apparently she was running against, according to his own leftist supporters. So we're talking about someone here who, first of all, supports Medicare for all with no private option, which means what? In other words, Not just are you going to get state-ran healthcare, but it is actually illegal for you to even pursue a different option. So basically a crazy, insane idea, much like Cuba or say North Korea, where you would be physically forced to accept failed, terrible healthcare. And if you try to do something to save your life because the healthcare is bad, literally you will be forced at gunpoint to sit there and die, right? That's what they mean by no private option. That's the reality of state-run healthcare. This is something that Daniel Biss supports, unlike apparently Kat Abughazaleh. Even Kat was not that crazy, okay? So again, we're talking about someone here who believes that. Not only does he support reparations for Black people, he actually gave reparations to Black residents in Evanston. He apparently donated about $25,000 to them. So, you know, this is how insane this person is. He supports so-called gender-affirming care, aka mutilation for trans youth, and much other things. He's been supporting the abolishment of ICE since 2018, blah, blah, blah. So again, you know, it's actually a case here that despite doing everything she could to win the woke Olympics in the end, turns out she lost, right? She lost to someone even more radical left than her, except in this case, the guy right here didn't have to go and get arrested and indicted. Isn't it so funny how that works? So, you know, there you have it. Now, I won't exactly say that in the end, I don't know, honestly, if this electoral outcome is a net positive for us. It's honestly probably a net negative because, yeah, we ended up getting someone, first of all, more radical, but then also harder to pick on or make fun of, right? You know, clearly, I would argue this guy was probably a lot smarter politically because instead of just, you know, engaging in theatrics, he likely tried to campaign. He tried to run a race fairly competently. So I guess that happened in the end because, you know, it turns out that all these stupid Democrats who try to put on a show or create some type of moment, you know, that's not politics. That's not real campaigning. That's not how you actually do it. So arguably, this guy might be more of a threat. I mean, it's by my understanding, a Democrat district. He's probably going to win anyway. But who knows? If he's this radical, then maybe there will be some holes to poke in his campaign there. But essentially, there, guys, there you have it. So. Not a good ending here for Kat Abughazaleh. I'm sure we'll actually keep you posted on this story because I'm sure she's going to be melting down here publicly very soon about how, I don't know, this is an establishment hit job or something like that or whatever, you know. I don't know. Enjoy jail. That said, guys, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.